Welcome to another episode of Backstage Agents. Today we have a special guest from the Nashville market, real estate agent, bagpiper extraordinaire. His name is Dave Goodman. Welcome to the show, Dave.
Glad to be on. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
We're stoked to have you.
Stoked to have you. So, Dave is a friend of mine, and I would like to take responsibility for Dave getting into the real estate.
You are the reason why I am here right now.
Everybody gets, if you don't know this, everybody gets into the real estate business because they see one guy, or one gal, and they say to themselves, if this person can do this job, I'm getting my license. I can do this better. Right or wrong?
Well, so it really was a lot of stars aligning because you've got a few years on me, and by the time we were really spending some time together, I had reached a point in my other career that it was just perfect timing, honestly, because I had gone through that, kind of met the point where I realized, okay, is this something I want to continue doing? And then also had enough confidence in myself. And then I heard you, and you are the reason why I like talking to you is because you are the hype man. Like you gave me confidence just based on your you're probably, just jabbering on about something within real estate. And it just was like, dude, this guy has a lot of confidence. And then you gave me the confidence by, you could do that, and it was just a kind of a light switch going off that made me go, okay, I'm going to try this. Yeah. So you are the guy and you still do that for me.
Oh, thanks, man.
Which is
I appreciate that.
I like hanging out with you.
So what were you doing before you were selling real estate? I think it's a pretty interesting backstory.
So I ended up in Nashville in 2011. And at that point in my life, and I make this pretty open, I had no idea what I was doing. And Nashville wasn't quite the cool place. It was on its way up, but I had ended school. My life was kind of all over the place. I was not doing really great from a personal standpoint. And, I managed to finish school in North Carolina somehow, but I didn't really know what to do from there. And so, I went to Belmont, and I'm a musician, like many people who end up here. I was like, okay, I'm not going to be, and I'm also a bagpiper. I'm a really good bagpiper, but really good bagpipers don't really make that much money. Or there's not really a career path. I'm not that good of a bagpiper where I'd go to Scotland and just do that. So I was like, okay, audio is interesting. Then I came here and realized, I'm not that good at audio compared to everyone else here. And I managed to scoot by, but I didn't do anything in audio because there's so many really talented people. That's all they do. They're like, there's a lot of musicians who get in audio, but a lot of audio guys aren't necessarily, they're good at audio. So it was, rude awakening. And I just wasn't that. I wasn't geared that way. And my mind wasn't really thinking that way. And so eventually, and also, I had all sorts of problems. Those problems led me to getting into recovery. And once I kind of started that journey, I was left with not really knowing what to do. And it was like 2000. Oh, that was 2011, and I couldn't get a job. So I just ended up working in the recovery world, which in Nashville, there's a lot of industry in recovery. There's a great recovery community here. This is addiction recovery, right? So, and it's huge here. And so I kind of got enmeshed in that, and then I started working in it, worked at the first rehab that I went to, worked the night shift, made $8 an hour, and then kind of moved up from there, got into aftercare and helping people figure out what to do afterwards. And then that led me into sober living. My wife, who had a real job, she could buy a house. And she was with me this whole time, and that was the whole thing. And we're doing great. But she's the reason why I kind of got into real estate with the house. And we eventually house hacked it and ran a halfway house out of my house, which is insane.
Would you recommend that?
Absolutely not. And I can't believe, honestly, that she let me do that.
That's the first time that's a house hack and a half.
Yeah.
So in Nashville, if you want to get into real estate, you got to be creative. And so that was my creative way into it. And then once we got that started, we were able to move out of that and slowly started building some real estate that way through house hacking and room rentals. And as I started doing that, I met you, and then you gave me the confidence, you can get your license. And I was like, okay. And then I worked in real estate while doing the nonprofit, because at that point it was a nonprofit called Rally House Recovery. That's what it was. And we had an urban farm. We worked in the farmers market. We were really into the Nashville community. Did farmers markets at downtown Nashville Farmers Market every single weekend. Brought my kid. There's so many people in recovery in Nashville. So just like that network and kind of getting into the fabric of Nashville started. And then I got my license, and then I started realizing I can put that same level of effort and maybe a little bit of that obsessive mind into real estate, and it pays way better than halfway houses. So,
or selling tomatoes.
Or selling lettuce. I sold lettuce.
You sold lettuce.
Not the devil's lettuce, but just like regular lettuce. So, yeah, that's what got me into it. And then I sold a couple of houses, and I'm like, okay, I'm done with this. I'm done with recovery homes, because you're working with guys who are, can't figure it out. And like by this point, I had a 2-year-old. I'm like, dude, I already got a 2-year-old. I don't need a 50-year-old 2-year-old. So I started losing that passion and empathy, and I realized I needed to get out because I had enough kind of going on in my own life that I kind of started losing some of that empathy for the guys that were struggling with this. And I'm like, it's time. It was time.
It was a natural ending. To
2020 is when I got my license. March of 2020.
Okay, yeah.
The world shut down while I was in class. It was March. I could remember it because there's like this phone call. I was at CLI. It was like one of the last in-person classes they ever did. And, they had just shut down the NBA. And I'm like, whoa, that was insane. But yeah, that's how I know when I got my license was right at the beginning of 2020.
Nice. That's when I was watching my whole career fall apart on television.
It was a transitioning period for most people, I think.
Yeah, definitely. So you went to Belmont for audio engineering?
I did.
I didn't know that about
you. I have a degree in audio engineering.
Okay, nice. That's fun. That's I spent a lot of time in that department and around all those guys.
Oh, in Belmont?
Yeah, because I went to Belmont as well.
Oh, did you?
So,
RCA? Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I don't think I ever knew that you went to Belmont.
It's a great campus, great teachers. I enjoyed it. I was just like in a different place in my life where I was kind of grown and just kind of needed that time to figure out what I wanted to do. So I racked up a big bill, but it gave me something to do for a couple of years while I was figuring it out.
Yeah, that's awesome. And where did you come? What brought you to Nashville originally?
Geographic change, needing a geographic change, and thought that would do it, and I was wrong because I showed up here and like just kept barreling down the dark path, as it were. But I just ended up here, and then I found recovery here, and then I've just stayed because at that point, that buzz about Nashville just started getting more and more interesting, and then we started buying real estate, and then that was good, and it's a cool place to live in general. So I'm originally from Houston, went to school in North Carolina, and my wife doesn't want to live in Houston because it's hot as hell. So we just have stayed, and it's been good, and I love Nashville because of all that I went through here.
So when did you start playing bagpipes? That's such an interesting instrument to play, and it's not something you run into even in Nashville very frequently.
So before I got when I was a kid, I always just wanted to be different and do something different and do unique things. My grandfather is from Scotland, so there's a little bit of that background on my mom's side, my grandmother's Irish Catholic from Jersey. She married my grandfather's Scottish. And so there was always wanted that. I like that connection, but mainly I just wanted attention as a child, so I just wanted to do something different. And in Houston, there just happens to be a really great bagpiping community, just like randomly. It's kind of random, but there's like high quality bagpiping and drumming actually in Houston, Texas. So I was able to get a good foundation there, and then I just like got good at it and enjoyed it, and have just stayed with it because I enjoyed it.
Yeah, and you're still playing today, right?
Yeah, so I play with a band in Houston now. I travel down, probably once a quarter, and we do rehearsals, and it's one of the best bands. It's competitive situation, so like every year there's a like World Pipe Band Championship, like the Olympics of bagpipes, and I just started playing with this band last year. We went to Scotland and played, and it was great, and then we're gonna go again this year. So whenever I'm gone, but luckily with real estate, I can kind of keep up with everything and go to these practices and still do a good job for my clients. It allows me to do that, So so in August I'll be back in Scotland doing it again and competing, and it's great. Yeah,
that's a ton of fun. And I know first time that we met, we talked a bunch about music, and you'd done some country Christmas stuff. I forget the artist that you were working with, but
Trace Adkins, Celtic Christmas. That was, and that's the cool thing about being in Nashville too, and a bagpiper. There's not a lot of competition, so when somebody wants a bagpiper, there's a couple people that are called, and I happen to be one of them. And that was an interesting opportunity. And I won't say interesting like it was bad. It was a really cool opportunity. Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, that's a ton of fun.
So, I mean, do you do mostly funerals? Is that the gig?
That's honestly what I would prefer if I'm playing any gigs these days. Mm-hmm. Like, funerals are pretty nice. You just, you show up, play, no one's asking questions. You walk off, you get paid, and then you go home. Weddings are a little bit more involved, because people are happy and want to talk to you. It's like, what's under your kilt? And so
what is under your kilt?
It just depends on the weather,
Yeah.
So, I mean,
I don't know. That's
but honestly, I don't play a lot of gigs anymore.
Yeah.
Real estate has allowed me to not have to play a lot of gigs anymore, luckily. So, but I will for certain occasions and certain things, and I'll play it like with the band. I'm heavily involved with the Nashville Pipes and Drums, which is our Nashville group. It's been around coming up on 40 years, I think. So really involved with them and keeping that. It's a nonprofit too for the community, for Scottish tradition and music and that whole thing. And that's where I kind of give my, volunteer. Mm-hmm. Do a lot with them.
You're a very sensitive guy, I think. Fair?
I don't know.
I would say. I mean, Dave's one of the nicest guys in the world, and empathetic. I think you've worked with a lot of difficult people in your life, from the sounds of it, with your history and everything like that. Yeah. Has that helped you with your real estate career? Is that transferred?
I think so. Yeah, when you're working with different people, I try not to be like the strongest opinioned person in the room, and I definitely have my preference on the type of people I like to work with. But early on in real estate, I was like, I wasn't busy enough to like discriminate, and I always have that kind of mindset is like, am I too busy to deal with this? And generally I'm like, no, I can do this. I think I'm starting to get to the point where I'm like, okay, is this someone I want to work with? Because I've got others I can pay attention to. So that's a lovely thing that I'm starting to have the opportunity to do. But generally speaking, I try to, see myself from, not take anything too, what's the word? Try not to take anything personal from people. Try not to. It's a challenge to be that way, but because I do it, And I mainly want to be liked. So I'll try to get along with everybody, even if I think they're horrible people. I still don't want to be disliked by that person.
Yeah.
Which is probably, you know, that's not necessarily always healthy, but I have that quality.
It's such a tight-knit community here.
And that too.
You know.
Everybody knows everybody.
You can't keep secrets.
Don't talk shit. I did learn that. If you're in the music industry too, I did learn that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, word travels exceptionally fast in music, and then I've noticed that about the real estate world, too.
True, yeah. That's very true. If you plan on doing a lot of transactions and in music, like how you deal in this situation does translate in other situations. If you're going to do a lot of business.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of those things like you botch a deal, or if you're on the road, if you do something stupid.
And that's kind of more important sometimes than just your level of musicianship, because a lot of the assholes are really great, great musicians, but how you hang is just as important or more important.
Yeah,
I've found.
Yeah, you're on that bus for 23 hours a day, and that show is 60 to 90 minutes, so you have to be able to get along with all kinds, and if you're on a tour bus, it's less than 400 square feet, and generally there's 10 people on it. So it's a good training ground for dealing with all kinds of different personalities.
Those who stick around are those who are really, they are easy to get along with. Mm-hmm. I've found, I think.
Yeah.
And it's a good testament to the different styles of people. Some people are very heavy-handed. Some people
that's very true.
I mean, I've seen Dave in action, and he has like the velvet glove. You're a killer, but you don't seem like one. But you are.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What's that all about? I mean, how do you?
I don't know. That's a great compliment.
Well, I mean, you.
Well, maybe you want to get confident. Like, I think experience allows you to get confidence, and when you don't know something, you don't want to act like you know something. Mm-hmm. Like you want to, it should be collaborative. So a lot of times if I don't know something and I'm working with someone who does, like I want to be in collaboration with them rather than like this.
Yeah.
But at the same time, a lot of times now you're working with people who maybe don't have the same level of experience, so like you can take advantage, but mainly you just want to feel like we're all getting along and we're all reaching the same goals and we want everyone to win. So I don't know, maybe just experience helps out with that.
So you're to the point that I know that you're starting a team this year, right? Yeah. The Grow team.
You helped me come up with that name.
Well, I thought, grows tomatoes. I mean, I knew him but I mean, that's a testament to, that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to grow.
Absolutely.
And grow people that come on your team.
Yeah.
What's it like trying to even start something like that?
It's new right now, and if there's anyone watching that has a license or wants to get their license, I'd love to talk to you. But it is, it's got its own challenges because you can't necessarily because I've worked with what I've done with the nonprofit and now with real estate. I've getting started with a team is like the hardest thing, I feel like, because you're just busy enough to where you need help, but you're not I'm not to a point where I just have it all, like to have endless resources for that. So you got to learn how to leverage and make it something that's worth the while of the other person that you're bringing on, but at the same time is still something that is good for the business. And I've struggled or challenged with that undertaking, is trying to figure that out, because not everyone's going to work exactly how you work or with the same level of urgency. You can't teach urgency, and I've talked to people about this all the time. Like, that's the biggest thing, I think, in business, or why I think I've done okay, is because I've got that like level of urgency for when something's needed. I try to just do it then instead of waiting, because then I'll probably forget. So a lot of people don't have that same idea.
Do you have now that you've got a step, do you have a vision? Do you have, like, ideally, what would you like to see your team be like?
Ideally,
is it like your band, your bagpiping band?
No, it's honestly, it would be I collaborate. Like most of the deals I do, there's another person involved, not on the other side, but with me. Most of the deals I do. So I am very collaborative, and I like working with people that are smarter than me on as much as I possibly can. That goes from on the lending side to the sales side. Like I don't, but my team specializes in short-term rentals, and now I kind of do, but I like hooked up with the best short-term rental agent in Nashville who managed Vacasa, which is the largest management company in the country, and he opened them up in Nashville, and I was able to somehow hook up with him, and we work together. So anything that has to do with that, I'm hooked up with like the best guy for that. And so I love doing stuff like that. So with my team, I love to work with people who either who have a strong hustle or have a strong expertise in a certain thing, or, who brings something to the table. Not necessarily something I'm just like giving them stuff, because which I've done that, but it's like not super helpful. So my dream is like bringing people to have like really strong something that they're giving, and then ideally I'm bringing in leads or people, who want to work with that, and then connecting the dots, is what I would do. And the dream is, and this is really great with the company that I work at, the beautiful thing about it is like you can work on a team, and ideally the person that's coming on the team, they're getting something out of it, whether it's leads or experience or just like hand-holding a little bit. But on the other side of it, that person's giving, whatever that hustle is or that expertise. And ultimately, the right person for the team that you want to bring on is someone who is like you and wants to build and has that self-drive, and then wants to go on and build their own team. And within Real, which is the brokerage I'm in, it allows for that. And what most in real estate in general, real estate brokerage is, there's usually that hard line of you don't want that person to grow too much because then they'll leave you. But within Real, I'm good with that person growing, and because once we're kind of attached and working together, like I have incentive for that person to do well and to grow and like for them to blossom. It really gives a perfect ecosystem for exponential growth for everyone to do well. So it kind of gets rid of that like selfish thing that I don't want you to go too far, because that allows people for it to really grow and get to be something special.
And that's very different.
Yes.
What you just said about teams is, it seems like there's, I don't even know many people like you, honestly. Like most teams I know, there's a leader.
Yeah.
And here's shackles. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm going to teach you how to do X, Y, and Z. I'm going to pour all this into you. And you're going to stay with me forever. Or, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's like that. But, I mean, to me, it's almost... I hate to be all metaphorical, but it's like the garden thing, man. And that's kind of like when we were talking about the name and the concept and the, it's like I was almost like, okay, go ahead, run along, little children, like start your own band.
Yeah.
That's
it. It really allows people to really be comfortable with that, because Real is a very collaborative company that I'm with, and it does. I mean, when there's no scarcity. With it, there's enough. Like I'll share with anyone everything that I do that's worked, and I'll share with anyone anything that hasn't worked for me. There's plenty of business. There's plenty out there for everyone. So, and I do feel like I'm in a company that, promotes that.
Yeah. That's it's nice to hear that you have sounds like an abundance mindset, because I know a lot of people in this industry and music. It's the same way. People, they don't have that abundance mindset, and it inhibits them from really growing. Because the best, what I enjoy, especially on the music side, is seeing other people get to go out and achieve their dreams and what they wanted to succeed with in the business. And I got to do that, and it felt great. And then, and I always have that mindset of like, there's always going to be another gig. in the terms. And then same thing I've found in real estate to be true is there's always going to be another deal. So even if you don't get it.
And you stay well liked because of that. It's like, wow, that guy actually cares about me, versus if you're worried about money and you're worried about stuff, if you have that fear for yourself, it's going to translate in how you deal in business with others, and it will cause you to make decisions in scarcity and burn bridges, right, in deals, which happens to everyone. And it's generally because the other side's afraid, and they're, they're thinking about short-term gains rather than the long-term, collaboration, doing deals in the future. You know? So yeah, and just being well liked. So yeah, how you deal with people is influenced by your, philosophy on that.
Yeah. And that's what I've noticed about you in terms of like dealing with clients. Like you always come from like, one, I notice you never leave a stone unturned. Like you'll figure out a way to get the deal done.
That's what I like about you too. Like we've got to figure this out. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because I think we are in the same boat where we end up with clients where it's sometimes a bit of a challenge to figure it out, and you're putting puzzle pieces together, and sometimes it's not for the faint of heart. And I'm sure your background in recovery, dealing with some of those, like you said, 50-year-olds who act like 2-year-olds. Yeah, it gives you the patience to be able to really sit back and go through some of that.
Right.
Where lesser people would be like, I can't deal with this.
I'm done with this.
Yeah. So that's what I appreciated about you.
Yeah, you see it finished, like you see it before it's finished. And actually, like, seeing opportunity where it's there. And I think a lot of agents have that issue too, like with people that they're working with, or they assume that there's nothing there and then they move on. Yeah. Versus like really working with that person all the way and seeing where there's opportunity, not just for you, the agent, but for that client. And then you gain a client for life because you really help them see something that they didn't see themselves.
Yeah, and because I end up with a lot of clients who have gone through a couple of people and gotten a couple of no's, and then it's just taking the time to figure out, can we get this done, and what do we do? What do we have
to put in place for it to be a yes?
And then maybe it's not a yes right at this moment. Maybe it's 6 months from now. Maybe it's a year from now.
Here's a plan.
Here's a plan to get it done. And I think, especially right now, you get so many people caught in just that scarcity mindset of trying to put food on the table. So a lot of those people get overlooked, and it's unfortunate. So because it's all hard right now. So
it's definitely not easy.
What makes it hard to work with somebody like on the other side of a transaction? Like, what are some of the things you bump up against? You're like, oh man, this again?
Gosh, every deal is unique and has its own specific challenge. It's nice when you run into the same challenge and you know how to deal with those challenges. Sometimes it's difficult on the other side if the other agent or the other side has not dealt with that particular problem. And that can be a challenge. And then how do you educate the other side of the solution without sounding in a way that puts their red flags up and their guard up? Because a lot of times if you have that scarcity, or if you're afraid, or if you haven't been through a certain situation, you're going to be defensive, and then you want to be defensive of your client because you're trying to watch them. But at the same time, you also just don't want to feel dumb. And so for me, like, that's a challenge. It's like, okay, how do I, let this person put their guard down, and also educate them on the situation and what solutions there are. So I've had that. And then on the other side of that, I've worked with agents who feel like they are God's gift to real estate, and they make assumptions based on my license number and what it ends with. I was like, oh, this guy's definitely only been here 4 years. He's probably an idiot. And so when I've probably done as many or more transactions that year or whatever, I don't know. Or they do a lot, but they come off like kind of talking down and talking about certain situations, those are challenging too. And some agents that just kill deals for no other reason than they just, like what we had talked about this before. I had a deal where the agent came in and found something within the inspection that just was overlooked by my client, the seller, and we were just like, yeah, we're sorry, we didn't know that was we needed, because it wasn't something that our client was responsible for. They just didn't know to say it, and I didn't know that it was an issue. But there was a solution, but that agent was just so convicted in their, like, I found this thing out, and let me tell you about, how long I've been in real estate, and they killed it for their client.
It didn't close?
They didn't close.
Oh.
His client
Don't
didn't.
you both have to close?
No, well, I went. Another buyer bought it.
Oh, okay.
Right after, because in their agent, I feel like was the contributing person that kind of fed to his client's fears, and it was, in my view, it wasn't a fear that was really founded, because the entire issue with the house was completely resolved. There was a kitchen fire. Right? There was a kitchen fire at some point. And this is like a 1960s little ranch, like in the hood, or it used to be the hood. That kitchen fire was the best thing that ever happened to that house, because an insurance came in there, paid loads of money, and made it a beautiful kitchen. It didn't happen while we were the buyer of it, or while my clients had it. It happened previously, so it wasn't something they felt like they needed to disclose. So that was the situation, and that agent kind of came in and I guess unveiled it, which it should be, but it was a completely resolved matter at that point, and the correct licensing and contractors came in and resolved it. I mean, we're talking about like a brick box. There's not a lot going on with this house, so it's not a complicated situation. And he came into it just like knowing better and was not very collaborative. As soon as like that issue came up, now we're just text messaging, emailing, won't pick up the phone, just like a dick. He just at that point, just emailing and putting it like all this stuff, like acting like a lawyer. He started acting like a lawyer rather than a what was the word that you told me this? It's like, how about you stop acting like a lawyer and more like a cooperating agent
instead of adversarial?
Yeah,
I think, and you tell me if I'm wrong, I think one of the biggest problems real estate agents have is maybe they don't have the experience. Maybe they haven't done, so they're overcompensating for that. But more than that, maybe they're new. They've never made the kind of money that they might be making.
Right.
They don't feel like they're worth it.
Right.
So then they start to, like a good lawyer,
yeah,
let's create a problem,
yeah,
so then I could solve it, so that I could say,
I did something.
I'm worth it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be that way.
Exactly right, yeah.
It doesn't have, and that's my experience with just real estate in general. Yeah. The point is to get the people what they want quickly, as quickly as possible. Not do a bad job.
Right.
But let's not just have a problem so I could say, I'm right.
Right. And that was, and on the other, and it was the opposite. This guy had been around and it was like, hey, I don't want to talk I've got this team here and I've got a team over there. And just so you know, and it's just like, let's work together. Like if you guys, because it ended up wasting my client's time, how this agent dealt with it, because if they were going to do it the way that they did it, it wasn't very considerate of their client, in my opinion, because their client didn't get the house that they wanted.
Right.
This house was beautiful.
They loved it.
They loved the house. It was perfect for their situation. It was the right price. It was the right house, and they didn't get it. Mm-hmm. My clients had to wait another 20 days. But, I mean, they went under contract, like, within 2 days. And we made the adjustment. We put it – and that's one thing I learned. Everything that's going on with the house, you want to put it – you want to get it out there in the forefront as soon as possible. Mm-hmm. And one thing I'll advocate for, which we don't do in this market a lot, is doing pre-inspections for the seller. So it's just all out there. And in Nashville, nobody does that.
No.
Nope.
Nobody does. And it's like bizarre because you're going to find out what's going on with the house. And it's just like, are you going to be surprised and are you going to freak out as a new home buyer? Like, oh God, they didn't reveal this. This house needs to be burnt down. It's trash, versus just getting it all out there. This is the inspection, and you're kind of coming from it from a different vantage point. But that also helps the seller. It's like it's all disclosed.
Yeah.
They can't come in, in 15 days and go, "We found this, give us money." It's like,
Yeah.
we already that was already a thing. So I just feel like that allows for the offer that you get to be a real offer. Now, if there's something else found out and you didn't assume, you deal with it. But for the most part, I do think if you get, a lot of times, even if it's really information that's can be bad, quote unquote, if the buyer knows about it on the front end, it's a lot less jarring than if they find out once they're under the gun, and now they feel pressured and they want to back out versus having it out there in the forefront. That's one thing.
I noticed that in lending world too. It's you want to get in front of every problem there and
talk through it and
here's
the scenario.
Yeah.
And I always say to my buyer clients that are struggling, I say, there's going to be a point in this transaction where you just feel like it wasn't meant to be. And that really is good. It's like, remember we had that conversation, the lender's telling you this and they just don't want us to get the house and it's not meant to be. It's like, remember we had that conversation.
Yeah.
You're going to get to that point. It's now, do you want to give up or do you want to overcome that and then achieve having that asset? Because really that first one's the hardest.
100%.
And what I've learned is like once you get that first one, and this is my whole model because I work with people who house hack and they build wealth and independence through real estate. It's not how smart you are or how much money you got. It's like, what do you know about the rules of the game and how are you playing the game? So, because I shouldn't have been able to build, do what I've done with my wife's, nursing salary. We just knew how to do it. And, we worked within that parameter and just didn't give up. We just had the stubbornness to do it, and each time I've never bought a house where it wasn't a pain in the ass.
No, I
It was always
tell every client that I talk to that I'm the worst part of the process.
Yeah, that's good. Setting expectations is so big.
And I notice a lot of people don't do that, but
This is going to be easy. You got this. That's the worst lenders. They're like, because they're just promising everything and then they get you locked in and then it's like, all these issues that you didn't know. Mm-hmm. So when you're working with lenders, like I try to let people know, it's like, it's the worst finding out 25 days into it that you don't qualify for this house.
Yeah, that they've already fallen in love with.
Right.
And that's
you want to figure that out with someone we trust on the front end. It's not necessarily going to be the answers you want to know right now, but it's going to be the truth.
Yeah, and then if you're working with a good lender, if the answer is no right now, hopefully they're putting in place a plan to get them there and coach them through it and do all that good stuff. But on the house hacking side of things, because I work with a lot of people where that's what they do, just musicians and
really big for musicians.
Yeah, can you just explain for maybe people who don't know
what that is?
House
hacking is a real estate investing strategy whereby the home that you live in, you are in a creative manner rent out some space within that house to offset your living expenses. And the reason why it's such a powerful strategy is because on the lending side, your primary home, the federal government wants you to own your home. So you get all of these benefits like lower down payments, lower interest rates, different incentives and programs to buy that house. And when you're just a straight up investor, you don't have those same benefits. So when I'm just buying a house that I don't live in, I have to put a larger percentage down. I have to pay more in closing costs. It's just a lot harder to do. Whereas if you're buying your own primary home, it is easier. And so it's still harder in since it was in the last 5 years. Well, actually, I won't even say that, because 2 years ago, someone like a musician wasn't buying a damn house because they weren't going to win the bidding war. 100%. So like, I don't actually think it's harder. It's just harder in a different way. It's hard in a different way. Now I have the pick of my house, and if I'm smart, I can now choose the best strategy to offset what I wasn't able to do before, which was have an extra $20K that I could just go over appraisal. So this is a better market for musicians right now. But I think for musicians especially, this is a great strategy because it allows you, because you're gig working essentially. And if you can start building real estate and doing it, because you also as a musician have a lot of friends who will rent out a room and rent out a studio. You have tons of people like that, and you're probably well connected with people that would love to do that. So it's honestly, I think if you can stomach that, it is just a great way to supplement what you're doing with your music.
Yeah, and it gives it, because right now monthly payments are so much more expensive.
Oh, exactly, yeah.
But it's kind of like
totally offsets to the interest rate issue.
Yep.
If you're willing to house hack, the difference between 3% and 7%, it's big, but depending on what your house hacking strategy is, it can be completely offset by just being willing to rent out space that others may not be willing to do. And you can do that in Nashville, you have the ability to do what's called owner-occupied short-term rentals. You can be in an area of East Nashville or some other trendy area that you may like, but in that area, there's no short-term rentals that you're really competing against because the zoning doesn't allow for it. So it's only allowed for someone like yourself that is also owns the property, and they do that for certain reasons. It's primarily because they don't want the neighborhoods to go to shit to bachelorette parties. Yeah. So they figure, if that person also has skin in the game and lives in the neighborhood, they're going to be more mindful of that, which is probably true. So yeah, house hacking, and on the real estate side of it, as an agent, having that niche and having that experience had allowed me to really focus in on my ideal clientele, which is someone who is willing to do that kind of work. Mm-hmm. And so now I pretty much work with buyers who do that. Yeah. And I can give them the best strategy that is currently available because I do it every single day with clients I work with and what I've done. I wouldn't necessarily tell everyone to start a halfway outside of their house, but I would say maybe rent out a room or do Airbnb. Or, man, there's a great strategy I just heard of called crash padding, where Southwest is moving headquarters here, yep, and they're renting rooms to pilots, who are going to be stationed here, but they're not living here. They're stationed here, or they quote unquote do live here, but they still want to be close to their families, so they just need a pad to crash at, because the airline's not paying for their room if they want to still live in Colorado. They need to have a place here in Nashville, so they're renting out beds. And these are there's tons of houses out in Donaldson where this strategy works, and this is a brand new phenomenon to me. So I'm constantly learning about different strategies like that. And that's been really good for my business.
Yeah, and I know Nashville, too, it's such a healthcare center. So you have traveling nurses. So I know to get around some of the
that's been very big.
Airbnb things, people are doing medium-term rentals. I think it's over 3 months is what it's got to be. And so people are renting out a room in their house.
It has to be more than 28 days.
28
days?
All
it has
okay.
To be.
Yeah.
So technically that's all that's needed. So, yeah, there's a lot of opportunity with house hacking in Nashville, and then it pretty much opens the door for people to start real estate, because you only have to live in that house, as you know, for a year.
Yep.
A lot of times it's okay, now I'm going to be in here, and honestly for me it was living it for a year or 2 or 3, let rents go up, let the things happen, do a creative strategy to make it work, and in a few years the rents have gotten to a point where I can now move out, rent it, and then buy another primary residence.
Yeah, and the best part about that, if you're already renting it, when you go to buy another house, you're then getting a lot of the same advantages that you did in the first time you bought.
Yeah.
You're not a first time home buyer, but it's still a primary residence.
Yes.
So low down payment. And the good thing of if you're renting the old house, that's not taken into account in your debts.
It's now an asset. Your primary house is generally is not an asset. Mm-hmm. It works against you. Investment properties work with you and help you build momentum. It's like the first house I ever bought, which was the recovery home. I refinanced it, pulled $60K out, bought my current primary residence, and still cash flowed the same amount that I did when I first bought the house. And then I sold that house and bought a triplex in where was that? In Wedgwood, Houston. So that first house bought me 2 houses.
Yeah.
And paid me, monthly. So like getting that first house in an appreciating metropolitan area like Nashville. Yes, it's very, and like the first house I ever bought, by the way, all my neighbors thought I was crazy. Like, you paid what? You paid $164 for that gigantic ranch house, and now, oh man. But we're saying the same exact thing now that we were saying in 2014.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's inflated. It's too expensive. When's the price is going to go down? Has it ever been that? It's always been the same story the whole time.
Yep.
It's too expensive. Like, oh, I'm going to wait. It's never not been that case since I started. And because I just got started. And the easiest way to get started is with your own primary house, because you're going to be paying something to live somewhere.
Yeah.
Might as well own what you've got and do it in a area that is appreciating. It's going to hold its value. And if it doesn't, well, you just got a place to live. Yep. And when it does, in a 5-year span, you've got options.
Yeah. And it's funny, I always talk to people, and people are super rate sensitive right now. And my thing, it's funny talking to them with people who are renting. It's like, you guys do realize, like, you're rate sensitive right now, but if you're renting, you are paying 100% interest. Like, you're just lighting money on fire. So I would rather pay 7% than 100%.
Yeah. It just depends on your goal. If you're going to be short term, I mean, maybe it does make sense to rent. Mm-hmm. But if you plan on being here for a year or 2 or 3, it always makes sense to purchase the home that you're living in, if you can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's like you were saying, that first one's the hardest, but once it's like investing in the stock market for the first time. You have that hesitation because you're stroking a check for a lot of money.
Yeah.
But the more you do it, the easier it gets.
Yeah.
So.
And it's way better than the stock market because I can leverage. I can put 3% down on a $300,000 asset, and then I've got a $300,000 asset, not 3% of 300,000, which I'm not a mathematiician. But what is that?
I don't know.
$9,000?
Yeah, $9,000.
$9,000.
You don't know how to multiply by 3%?
I know how to multiply by 3, 2.5, and 2 now at this point. So yeah, I mean, that's the power of leverage in real estate. It's in people like compare apples to apples like the stock market. In the stock market, I can get an 11% return, or my now like savings account, but it's like you can't leverage that.
You can't live in a mutual fund.
You have to have $300K to do that, and I don't have $300K sitting around, but I might have whatever to put into a house, and if it's the right deal, which you're not going to get an investment property only put 3% down and it makes sense. You're going to be got to get away from the idea of just putting 20% down and make a deal work, because it ain't going to work. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's really 50%. But even if it's 50%, it's not 100%.
Yeah.
You didn't put $300,000 into it, you put $150,000. And you're getting double the return. So instead of 11%, you're getting 22%.
Yeah. And that's the beauty if you're doing the house hacking thing. You can I just call it primary residence hopping, because you can get in, rates are high, you'll refinance it, and hopefully by the time you refinance maybe.
But I don't know if interest rates are actually going to go down.
Yeah.
They just been there for.
Yeah, they've been sitting here for where they are.
It is what it is.
Yeah, and it's. But hopefully in the future, and if you get that opportunity, you're living.
But hopefully if it does, our our economy is tanking.
Yes.
Is the thing. So if you may not have a job at that point, but,
Yeah.
Because if they do go down, it's because something bad's happening, right?
Yeah, generally. So, yeah.
I gotta say, you're somebody who's really defined a niche.
Yeah.
And you know a lot about it.
Yeah.
You come off as an expert in it.
Right.
And it's a creative thing, Like there's not a lot of analytical people, that would even think like this. That could see a house for what it could be,
right? Not
for what it is.
Correct.
You're always looking at potential.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. There's really not really any good deals out there, which is true. There's not a lot of great deals. It's how you're going to create the deal.
Right.
So your strategy is what makes it a good deal.
Right.
And it's the circumstances like, hey, this house, 2024, has been sitting here for 60 days. In 2020, you didn't get to buy that house because someone else bought it from California who had tons of cash from when they sold their house. They were able to pay over asking. And so now you have the average buyer has the option to buy something. And the only thing that gets in their way is just, their ability to get lending and then their own fears,
Yeah.
Does bagpiping hurt your hearing?
Yes.
Yeah. Have you heard of bagpipe?
Oh, yeah.
I came to Dave's house one day. He was playing the bagpipes. I thought the windows were going to break.
Yeah.
It was the loudest instrument I ever heard.
Yeah. It is loud.
What's up with that, man? Why? What made you
It's
see
a scary
that?
instrument.
I mean, I know we're going backwards here.
It's a
scary instrument.
So it's not, bagpiping isn't really easy listening.
No.
So sometimes music isn't just about, oh man, this is like nice. Bagpipes is a powerful, state that it puts you in. So it's jarring, and in certain situations, it's like very powerful. It's the right instrument for those certain situations. Say a funeral, a very sad funeral, or someone who, different settings in churches and in cathedrals and things like that, where the bagpipe comes and it's like, whoa, but it can also be horrible. An out of tune bagpipe is the worst sound ever to me. It's like, it is not musical. It's not nice. So really, all those things have to be in place. And when you're in the presence of one in the room, you're just like, it's like, whoa. It's like a crazy, jarring experience.
I've been around music a long time and have heard all the instruments and in ensembles and then by themselves. I don't think there's a single instrument that by itself that elicits such an emotional response.
That's it, right?
Like bagpipes does.
Yeah.
Like it sets a vibe and it immediately sets an emotional response because they are so powerful and so cool.
It's not the right thing for most situations, but for the right situations, it's there's nothing else.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Dave, I appreciate you coming here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
This is a podcast we started for people like Dave, creative people, creative minds. I see that you bring that creativity to the things you do, and that's really cool, man. I think a lot of people can learn from that, no matter where you're at in the country. I think that's what's interesting about Nashville. When I moved here, I was encountered with some of the most, and still, the creative people of this world congregate here. It transcends into the real estate business, and I think a lot of people could learn from that. But also learn from the fact that, if it doesn't come out in a rinse, it'll come out in a wash. Maybe it's a good idea to get your home inspected first, like we would get our financial temperature taken right off the bat.
You would think.
Let's not figure this out later. You know what I mean?
Nobody's
There's nothing
doing
wrong
that.
with that.
It's a great way to go about it.
Because you're going to find out anyway.
Yeah.
It's not why catfish somebody
Yeah.
into, oh yeah, we got a barbecued kitchen, and we forgot to tell you. You know what I mean? not to say anything bad about his deal or anything, but I mean, it's gonna come out, man.
Right.
It's gonna come out.
Right.
Better to disclose.
Exactly.
So.
Cool.
But yeah, thanks for coming out, Dave. It came in clutch.
Yeah, yeah. And if anybody is interested in bagpiping, they can reach out to me on Instagram. my Instagram is Grow with Dave TN. That's like the real estate side. But yeah, if you're interested in real estate stuff too, as a buyer or a seller or an agent that is getting into the space and wants to work with a collaborative team, hit me up. That would be great.
Yeah, if you're looking to be on a team because you want to start a team, that's the team, the Grow team. Grow with Dave.
That's right.
And then go off the flock and go.
Yes, go do your own thing. Once you get to that point,
Yeah.
I love that.
So
Awesome.
Anything else, Christian?
I'm good. Thanks for
Thank you so
coming,
much.
man.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Thanks for the cigars.
Of course.